Hey, everybody out there. This is Ski with FMP. Today we've got Mr. Daniel,
Yo.
and then we've got Andrew.
Hi.
So, if you don't know, Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So I'm in the Spring Cypress area of Texas. Been playing Age of Sigmar basically since 2.0, launch. Not before then, but been really into it ever since then. Mostly a Lizard Seraphim player, but I've picked up new armies almost more than I should because I'm not done with any of them. But it's fun. I love the game. I love playing in tournaments and all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited.
Good, man. I know at our local hobby store or shop, we didn't have any Age of Sigmar, and we got it going, and now it's taken off quite strong. And Andrew's one of our I want to say one of our top players with the Seraphim. He's really an expert on a Seraphim army. I know he can't wait to get his KO on the table.
Mm-hmm.
That's his future. But today we're gonna do some talk about like the title talks about Age of Sigmar tournament prep discussion. I've been to a lot of tournaments during the 40K time. I've been to a couple of tournaments now with Age of Sigmar time. I've been doing this hobby since end of second edition of 40K. So I've been in this for a very long time. Daniel, what about yourself?
I started playing, what is it? I guess this is year 3 for me. So not that long, but dived in feet first. And the local community had one guy that was running a lot of the tournament scenes. So I ended up volunteering to help do that. So I run half the tournaments now out of San Antonio.
Excellent. And Andrew, how long have you been doing this?
Well, as far as Warhammer and 40K and stuff, since what would that be? I don't know. I started when I was in 8th grade. So, okay. But then eighth grade through high school. Then during college, I took a break, about 10 years break, and then, like I said, I came back around 2.0 Age of Sigmar time and really got into it. I had a bunch of armies from back then, but I didn't play any tournaments or anything like that. So nowadays it's much more serious, I think.
Excellent. Let's go. We got a little bit of distance between some of us, some back and forth, some So like I said, I don't do any more 40K. I do strictly Age of Sigmar now. Got to focus. But yeah, so let's talk about. We'll do some tournament prep. Let's start with. Where do you want to start? With list building?
Yeah. Well, and we should caveat this whole discussion with this is definitely heavily limited to Texas. Where this is definitely our impression and our kind of viewpoint. This is not a be all end all of what you can do for tournament. This is going to be heavily shaped by the type of community we have down here and what the expectations are down here for tournament play.
Yeah, exactly. And some of this you can use to roll over into some of the outside world too, because some of it's not going to change. The only part that's going to change is yourself. Give me 1 second. Go ahead, Dan, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So what we wanted to kind of talk about is basically help people out either who've never been to a tournament to get prepped for a tournament, and then also talk to people who've been to maybe local tournaments and have never been to a grand tournament and kind of don't have any idea about what to expect or maybe how it's different from things that go there. So there's kind of 2 different sections here. There's going to be talking about how you prep for like a local 1-day, 3-game tournament, 4-game tournament, 2-game, 1-game, whatever it is, and then also how you're going to kind of talk about prepping for the big 3-day, 4-day, 5 or 7-game tournaments. And there's a little bit of a difference in kind of what you can expect and what you need to think about going into it. And so rather than list building, I think probably where we should start about is there's a big question you kind of have to ask yourself. Why do I want to go to the tournament? Like what's the point of that I'm going to get out of going to the tournament? Because there's lots of different reasons that people enjoy tournaments. Yeah. And off the top of my head, the ones that I can think of. So for myself, I go to tournaments because I like playing competitive games, and tournaments are a great place to play against other people who like playing competitive games without ruining somebody else's fun by bringing a really mean list and then playing this is the models I happen to own list and them not getting any enjoyment out of the game. When I go to a tournament, I know that after the first game, everybody I'm playing is probably there with a list that they've spent time building. They bought models specifically to build this list, and they're there probably to try to win games as much as possible. That's my personal thing. Ski, why do you go to tournaments?
Well, I used to go to tournaments to try to do as best I could. And then I'm going to talk the 40K side. I know we're Age of Sigmar, but my big ones like Adepticon and a couple others I've went to, I've always been the underdog because my armies always have to go to tournaments are not up to par with the current meta. Or I do not play what everybody else plays. So I try to find a list that is different enough that people don't realize and catch them off guard and try to tweak it and surprise them. And with the win or not, that's not the big deal. Try to surprise them with something that I bring that it's not conventional. But recently, man, for Age of Sigmar, I go to tournaments for 3 reasons now. The people, I enjoy the people, the group, the community we have in Age of Sigmar. That's why I go. The second part is just to throw some dice, play some of the top players, see how they play, experience, that epicness of, getting, let's say I get tabled, but, having a hard time winning, trying to do my hardest to do something against them, and for my Iron Jaws is get my foot of Gork off and see how many mortal wounds I can do in one sitting. That's my goal. Like those are the 3. I mean, there's more, but those are like my 3 fun things I like to do. So what about you, Andrew?
For me, playing in tournaments, I'm very competitive by nature, so I want to do the best I can, and try to win. Now, and like you guys said, obviously, I'm not trying to bring something that's gonna hopefully make people upset. That's not my goal at all. But I know it comes off that way sometimes because a certain unit I have is like a curse word. But it's
Do you play Gristlegore, Andrew?
No. It's not even that. It's Seraphim Bastillodons. People they're not crazy about my Bastillodons. It's weird. But I like the community, like you said. I've only been really, really cool people that I've played with, and everybody's really like on the same page. It's a game, we're having fun, but we're still going for objectives, right? But I generally am. I don't know. It's just in my nature. Like I like to help out people, especially if I know like this is some of their first games. I remember one tournament specifically. I was playing with a guy that's gone to a bunch now. I think that was like his second or third tournament at the time, and he's like going through his hero phase, didn't cast all his spells. Like, are you sure you're done with your hero phase? And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, what about these guys and these guys? Like, oh yeah, let me cast those spells. So like that's what I like to do. I like to help people make sure that they're playing their best. So if I win, then great. I beat someone who's doing their best. It's better than saying, oh, you forgot this and this and this, and I won because of that. It doesn't make me feel as good. So I like winning because strategy or dice rolls, whatever.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I always need the help. Sometimes I forget so much. A lot of times they're like, hey, don't forget to do that. I'm like, oh yeah, God, and then Fitagor kills a bunch of stuff. But hey,
which kind of now leads into the second piece. So now that you know what you want to get out of it, is how do you build your list to get the most out of it? Obviously, if your goal, like Ski, is to get off Foot of Gork and deal damage, better make sure you bring the Shaman. Otherwise, it's going to be real hard to achieve your goal.
Well, what's funny about that though is most people will not usually dispel it because of how hard it is to cast, for one, and 2, how the luck of it to actually go off like it does. So I get very lucky, and people let me see. Let's see how bad it does, because usually I'm already getting wiped in most parts. So it's almost like a pity party.
Well, I can tell you, I've been on the receiving end of that one. I did a Corpus tournament, and I was playing Nurgle at that point, right before their book had come out. So I had Glotkin leading a bunch of Blight Kings, and Foot of Gork went off, and Glotkin went from 18 wounds at full health to 2 wounds left.
Oh wow, nice one.
So it was an experience.
Yeah, I've been
go ahead.
a couple times. I've been footed a couple of times as well. It's interesting. I haven't
Yeah.
had any like what Ski did at what was it, Adepticon, where you wiped half the army with it.
Oh, Wargamers Con, where I did like 30 something to Jeff, and like that whole the whole Wargamers Con as a whole, I did so much foot of gorking, it was disgusting. And then at Austin, I did it again to Jeff for another 20, and so yeah.
Well, and in addition to making sure that the list that you're bringing does what you want it to do, I would say that probably the most important thing that you can do for a tournament is you bring a list that you know what your army does.
Yes.
Like whether it's you've reviewed the cards and you've played the list before, or like there's no need to have it memorized, but at least be familiar enough with it so that if people ask you questions or anything like that, you can point to where on the war scroll this is coming from. You can explain what's going on, and you're not going to be spending 5 to 10 minutes every turn rereading war scrolls to remember what things do.
Exactly.
Because one of the unfortunate downsides of the tournament scene is that you're heavily budgeted on time. Even in the 5 game 3-day tournaments, you're looking at what, 2.5 hours a game, maybe
Yep.
3. And when you're wanting to play the full 5 turns, that can be really tight on time for some matchups.
Especially if you're not used to playing your army, going to a big tournament, you're not going to go as quick, and you're going to lose time. Also, with your army itself, I had a good thought and I forgot what it was. It's not just the design, but it's again, like you said, caveat, knowing the core of your army. Now, the data cards that they brought out are great to help, but when you're building your list, build it and play it. Like you need to design it around how you want to play. Like
which I will argue that when you build your list, the important thing for list building is it fun for you to play, not does it win.
Yeah.
And I say that as a competitive player because I tried doing a slow play, 200 bodies on the board, you just can never unseat me from objectives list. And I was miserable playing my opponent. I did not have fun. I don't think my opponent had fun. I won, but I didn't enjoy the game. And I played it once and I said, you know what? I am never playing that list again because I didn't have fun playing it. Even if I could win 100% of my games with that list, no.
Yeah, I'm the same way with my Iron Jaws. Like a lot of people do the Gorgrunta rush, and I'm like, I do stuff differently. People use battalions. I hardly use battalions. I'm like a 12, 15 drop army. Bam, I'll make this work.
Yep.
Because I enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy what if you're bringing your 160 Skaven center objectives army. My goal is to go, how am I going to beat that? What's my target priority? And we'll get into that. But that's your design versus my design. How do I do this? And
so I won't say this is completely encapsulates all potential play styles, but I would say that I've kind of noticed there's 3 general army styles that I've noticed people play, and you may fit into one of these or kind of be a weird mixture, but sticking with what you enjoy playing is probably the best thing to do for tournaments. And then you can experiment outside of tournaments at local play. But when you go to the tournament, play with what you want. And the 3 kind of big things that I've seen is the Alpha Strike. Yep. Your goal is to get everything in combat turn 1, and you win or lose by turn 2. Right? That's the list. Yep. There's a lot of different ways to do that. The Gorgrunta, shock troops is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
My Plague Monk list is kind of that. If I decide to play that at my 140 Plague Monks. Then
just think about that. Just down the spine. Oh.
So you're the one who's telling me that you think I should come out to Houston for your tournament and bring that 140 Plague Monks. I mean, I'm just saying.
Hey, I bring it. I love to see it because I get to be the judge and I get to
have to play.
Disgusting. That's disgusting. Oh, that's gonna hurt. Oh.
So yeah, then the second one is kind of what I was talking about before. Is it's drown your opponent in bodies, whether or not they're like, however that you make them effective is kind of secondary. You've just got enough bodies on the board that your opponent's got to whittle you down. The winner, I'm not sure if they won or got second place at Wargames Con last year, but that was the way that their army was built. They had I want to say it was 80 Marauders and 120 Plague Monks, 2 Great Unclean Ones, and a Sorcerer.
Yeah.
That was their army. And bodies everywhere. And you could kill 40 Plague Monks, and he had another 40 that just came up and said, "It's my turn now."
Yeah.
And then the final one is the Death Star, where your entire army is built around keeping everything kind of within 7 inches or 14 inches of each other. And then if any enemy comes within range, the Death Star just nukes them.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And those are kind of just the general lists that I've seen that tend to be effective and people have fun doing. And different people enjoy those different games styles. And you can experiment with those styles, play something else. Gun lines are starting to become an option with Skaven and knock on wood, KO.
And Stormcast.
And Stormcast has the ability to do that now with their what is it, the Judicators? No, the Longbowmen. I forget what their names are. It's something a cater.
They've got a couple of things. They got a big one is the 4-cell Star Ballista.
Yep.
Judicators are the battle line, and they also have like Vanguard Hunters have a little bolt pistol thing. But yeah, the Long Strike, I think is one you're talking about. Those are pretty sick. And
then they have the battalion or the chamber that lets them shoot in the hero phase.
Yes, the Anvils of Hell and Hammer for a command point. If you're next to a hero or general, you can fight like it's the fight phase or shoot as it's the shooting phase. Typically, the shooting phase.
Yep. But that's another one that you can do, and there's a couple of armies now that can pull that one off. It's not as prevalent in AOS as it is in 40K, but there are a couple of ways to do it. And with the mercenaries bringing organ guns, it might be a little bit easier to do with any army.
And then you got the big creature / monsters armies that people put a lot of big toys on the table, and it's more of a distraction. It's I have these big toys and they're nasty. You have to deal with them while they're taking objectives. Like that's another one.
All right. We kind of talked about that. So then the next thing to do would be, I guess painting would be kind of the next one before we get into other things. Is you need to read your tournament pack, and you need to make sure that, first off, obviously you need to make sure that your army is going to be legal for the tournament.
Yep.
And that's both minimum painting requirements and conversion requirements. And those are both things that can come around and bite you if you're used to playing with friends. If you aren't paying attention, you might get burned a little bit with that. Yep. So pay attention to that. And then talk about what you want to get out of it. I know a lot of people that go to tournaments specifically for the painting competition, that they could care less about the game. In fact, I'm going up to Austin's tournament this weekend with one of our local players that's all she cares about. She goes to tournaments to compete in the painting competition and to play some games, but she's not familiar with winning games. She loses every game she plays right now.
Yeah.
And she enjoys it, I guess. I'm confused, but she has fun and she keeps coming back out. But what she's really there for is to show off her models and to compete in the painting competition, because that's the only way she knows to kind of do that sort of thing.
Which is fine.
Absolutely.
As long as they're willing to not quit.
Yeah.
My biggest thing.
Yep. And then as far as packing goes, how you're traveling is going to really be what dictates packing.
Oh, packing.
Which may dictate list building.
And then it goes to painting.
Yep.
Because there's things that you paint that you don't want to get damaged. So, example, we have a really Houston individual out there named James West. Amazing. He plays Everchosen with Archeon and Oz Vanguard. He does not fly. I don't believe he doesn't travel. He travels with them, but he doesn't travel with his Daughters of Cain because of transport reasons. Which makes sense because they're very thinner models, thinner things, and they can break, which then if they break and you go to Gloom, your paint job could suffer from that too because of glue marks, whatever. So then you have to bring paint. So you really have to understand, like, okay, cool, if I'm going to bring an army, you want to be able to have the right packing for it. And I'm going to grab something while, Andrew, if you want to jump in on that.
For transportation, well, that's something I need to get better at for sure. Is transporting my models and stuff. I've got ideas. I'm gonna go try to do, magnet cases. Right now, I've got a couple that I'm working on that are gonna work. I just gotta finalize the things, get the magnets on the bases and that kind of stuff. But the other thing is kind of part of, I think, transportation is display boards. I don't know if we're going to talk about that in more detail, but that's another thing that I'm kind of interested in maybe doing and trying to get that done before Warzone. But
yep, yeah, good catch. That's something to kind of think about. Different tournaments have different ways of doing painting competitions, and look at those rubrics, because some of them have things like display boards. It's not enough to have well-painted models. You kind of have to have a scene that you're setting to show off the army, because everybody's going to have well-painted models. So there has to be that extra step that you can do to differentiate yourself.
It's so packing. I want to bust this out to show people some things, and this is a good way to do it. It is, you got to spend money and whatnot, but it helps. Is you got your plug foam, and so if you can see, I've got the gore grunters, I've got brutes, all one tray. So this is something I did. I plucked out myself. Then you got boys. More boys and the shamans and stuff, but this is what I want to show you. So there's a good company called Battle Foam. They do a lot of custom foaming to help fit a lot of different things. I have, he's not in here, but this is set for 2 Maw Crushers, 3 to 6 pigs, and a Mega Boss. And this saves me so much time and issues when I use this. So it all packs up very nicely, but then you have to think about, okay, it packs up very nicely. How is it going to fit? Am I driving or am I flying? If you're flying, some planes, this does not fit on carry-on. Sometimes you have to put this on, underneath the plane. So if you do that, is it going to be, if everything's going to be fine? Because it's going to get squished. So I want to show you another option. Another case I've got that I took to Adepticon. We took 2 of these. These are Pelican cases. These are pressurized cases too. So when this was on the plane, this thing got sucked so tight you could not open it. You actually literally have to release the pressure out of here to be able to open this case. And everything was in here snug. So this is my bone splitter army. But there's different kind of cases. Now, if you're driving, of course, anything will really work. I mean, whatever works for you. But if you're flying, you really got to understand what you're going to take and how you're going to transport it if you're going to fly. So. All
right. Well, I kind of think that covers everything leading up to the tournament. We probably forgot some things, but we're only human. But now let's talk a little bit about how tournament play is different from your casual Friday night play, and how a local tournament, a 1-day, is going to be different from a 3-day, a grand tournament. So I think the biggest one to kind of start off with is you as a player. There's going to be some expectations from you in a tournament scene that are going to be different from when you're just playing with your buddies. And the biggest one is that you need to finish the game.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter if you already know who's going to win and lose. You need to, unless everything about the game has already been decided and you've been tabled, or there's literally nothing left to do, you need to play out the rest of the game until either time happens or you run through all 5 rounds. Because almost every tournament is going to have aspects of gameplay and scoring that are beyond, did you win or lose the objective? Did you win or lose the scenario? Whether that's secondary objectives, whether that's kill points, whatever.
And it usually goes until turn 4. I think they say in some missions, you keep playing until turn 4, even if you're tabled.
Yeah, turn 5 is most missions.
Is it 5? Okay.
Yeah. Or time, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
And on a similar note, a lot of tournaments have started adopting, if you don't make it to turn 3, you get a loss.
Wow.
That most armies are built around the first 3 turns. And so if you don't play through all 3 turns, you're doing a disservice to your opponent. Yep. And so one of the things that I've seen, so the GW tournament that's coming up in August, That's in their packet. If you don't make it to turn 3, if you don't finish turn 3, you and your opponent both get a loss.
Wow.
And I think that's part of, and that's a 2-part thing, because we have a community that it's about the friendship and the fun and the excitement and the camaraderie and the sportsmanship. That translates to how you play in the tabletop. If you go in there going, and I'm going to use my Iron Jaws, or actually I'll just use Dispossess because they're in a very bad spot. I go up there, I know I'm not going to last. I know, but they're gorgeously, they're amazingly painted. And I go in there, I'm like, cool, I'm only going to play until turn 2. That doesn't do nothing for my opponent. That has nothing to do for the whole system, the whole community, because you need to let them have a chance to get as many points as they can get, and you might still get some stuff out of it, and you might lose the game, but you're still getting points. You're still, there's other things you get out of that. And dropping really messes up people.
Yeah.
Because if you don't realize it, especially in big GTs, and I mean, actually in all tournaments, because like, I'll give you an example. So Andrew's over here playing, an Adepticon, and he goes to play, he wins his first 3 games on the first day. The second day goes and the guy drops. Okay. This is what tournament organizers have to figure out. Do he only gets half points, we'll just say, or do you have somebody with a list, a judge that can be his ringer, to give him the opportunity to score points? Because if he doesn't have the opportunity, you just messed him up in his rankings massively, and which then goes back to sportsmanship.
Yeah. Not to say that you can never drop out of a tournament, right?
Yeah.
Like, we understand things happen, but the idea there is if you've lost a game, or you've lost all your games and you're not having fun, go talk to the tournament organizer and see if they can help you out. Go talk to your friends. Go talk to your opponent and just let them know, hey, I've been having a lousy time at this tournament. Can we do something to make this game a little bit more fun? Because I'm just not having a good time, right?
Yeah.
But don't not show up, because that's just not that's hurting everybody else at the tournament. It's gonna end up giving you potentially a reputation that you want to avoid, because we are a very close-knit community. The number of people who I know by face and army that do not live in my city, like, it amazes me. And I take the comments that these people that I play with regularly and have a good time with very seriously. And if someone says, hey, you need to watch out for this guy because whatever, I'm going to be looking out for that. And it may influence how I play or how I score them on sportsmanship.
Yep.
And not just in the game where it happened, but in future games.
Yeah.
That said, there's some things that you can do as a player that can help alleviate some of these things. The biggest one is movement trays. Movement trays are, in my opinion, one of the things that if you have any units that are more than 10 people, you should have.
I would agree with that.
I'm not saying they have to stay on the movement trays the entire game, but for turn 1, everything with 10 plus units, put them on a movement tray.
Yep.
That way, when you do your first round of movement, most of the models can be moved at once. The amount of time you save by moving all of your army with a handful of motions on turn 1 is massive. And if both you and your opponent do that, that can be upwards of half an hour of time that you save.
Yeah, generally speaking, turn 1 is probably going to be one of the longer turns because everyone's still alive. You still have everything to do and move and stuff like that. Unless you're just playing really defensive and you're just like, I'm going to stay on my side of the board, it's your turn. It's going to be a pretty long turn. So any kind of speed up to that with movement trays would be beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, and similarly, obviously, you need to bring your own measuring utensils. You need to bring your own dice. Don't rely on your opponent to be able to provide for you. In a Friday night game, that can fly. On a tournament, that gets very frustrating very quickly.
And markers. Make sure you bring objective markers, even if you use them or you don't, because you never know.
Yep, just put 3 poker chips in your case.
Yep.
And then if nothing else, you've got half the objective markers you need for a game. Now, ideally, they won't be needed, but if they are, and you've got them.
Poker chips.
Yep.
I have these and another one just in case for, and I'm going to say this, we should be fine. But for Warzone, if our tokens and our objective markers do not come in, I have a backup until they come in, and we already discussed that. If they don't come in and they come in after, we're mailing everybody their objective markers. Yep. But I have 2 of these that I'm going to use in case they don't show up.
Yep. Measuring, from a measuring perspective, all you need to bring is the tape measure.
Yeah.
I recommend bringing the 3-inch measuring sticks that you can get that have the 3-inch, 2-inch, 1-inch sides. Those are super useful for combat. They speed up a lot. And then if your army has a lot of buffs or spell ranges or ranged attacks that have a similar range, getting little plexiglass rulers cut at those inch markers can save a lot of time. I've got a 13-inch one that I bring with my Skaven army because I have a lot of different effects that require me to be wholly within 13 inches. And rather than measure, pull the card out, measure each time, I have a 13-inch ruler that sits next to the game board that I can just grab and look at real quick. And it saves a fair amount of time across 5 games.
Also,
I have a, sorry, go ahead.
Andrew, go ahead.
Okay. Well, along with that, I got the 2018 Warlord edition for the handbook, and it came with 2 9-inch pre-cut measuring sticks. And that's really helpful for my army since I have both teleporting and summoning, and both of those you're generally required me to be more than 9 away. So I can just put that stick down from wherever they're going to go, and I can just put my units up. It's real nice. You can, instead of having to pull out the measuring tape. So I think that's a really good one if you have any summoning or teleporting. It's also, I've used it before where on some of those diagonal battle plans where it's 9 inches away from the middle. So I would just I'll put my measuring tape down across the length of the board, and we'll have the 9-inch ruler from the middle and say, all right, that's as far as we can go to deploy.
Yep.
Well, and something else it's starting to catch on that I saw LVO that Atomic is starting to do, but they did it for 40K, and I'm trying to get them to do it for AOS, is the mouse pads. They are a 12-inch bubble, basically, which the center of it is the objective, and you put that on the table. You know whatever number you use. Then when your units are going to the objective, 6 from the center, as long as they're on that mouse pad, they have the objectives.
Oh, that's brilliant.
No way to you don't sit there and measure. It's showing you, okay, who's in range that's there.
That's brilliant. I need to get me 6 of those.
Yep.
Those are really cool. And I'm a big fan of Atomic, and I like their symbol and stuff. But I would hope they can make ones that are more scenic and not as take me out of the immersion of fantasy battle. So.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is just do a green grass pattern on them. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard.
Or some rocks or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. So we talked about most of the things. If you have an army that rolls a lot of dice.
Oh, yeah.
If you're playing Bone Splitters, if you're playing Skaven, if you're playing Witch Elves, where you're rolling 40, 50, 60 dice, get a dice cup and get a dice box.
Yes, I agree. And then there's also the GW app.
Yep. If your TO or your opponent, either one, is okay with it, then using a dice app can save a ton of time. It may not work for you. It's very hard to use a dice app when you have re-rolls of this and 6s of that and like all that fun stuff. But if it fits your army, then absolutely, dice app can save you tons of time too.
Yep.
Oh, and my cats managed to open the door, so they may join us in the call.
I had my dogs, but I had to put my dogs up there. She was chewing on bone too loud, so I was like, all right, go over there.
Yep. So dice etiquette.
Oh, yeah.
Big one right now, obviously, of course, is don't touch your opponent's stuff, period, unless they say it's okay, whether that's models or measuring sticks or dice. This isn't necessarily your friend that you play with every time, and you've already got the understanding and the implicit permission. Ask for permission before you touch something of theirs, especially models.
Yeah, especially models. One thing I want to put in there, though, too, with the models, and I seen this at LVO, and I'm not going to – it was on the 40K side, but it was very unprofessional, in my opinion. But, outside, I'm not going to say nothing. Is an individual moved his model up to I'm just going to use 2 models just to show you. So he's got his model that he's going after him, and so he was going to get him in base contact, but his model was going to scrape up against this guy's beautiful model. So he tells the guy, "Hey, I'm on base contact, but I'm not going to put him in base combat because of it's going to scratch." The guy said it was okay. The guy's turn comes around and says, "Oh, that guy's not in base to base. I took advantage of it."
Yeah, that's not okay.
That's not okay.
There's the player etiquette and sportsmanship, but so the one guy was trying to be nice about it, go, "Hey, I don't want to mess up your model," you know, and then the other guy took advantage of it the next turn.
Yeah, that's no bueno.
So something you got to watch out for.
Yep. And then, so yeah, but it's the standard that I've seen, and you guys can let me know if you've come across anything else, but the standard that I've seen is when you roll your dice, you pick up the dice that don't matter. So most of the time that's failures.
Yep.
And if you pick up a dice, it's a failure. No matter what the dice says. I'm sorry.
Yep.
If you pick up a 6 to hit on accident, don't be real careful about it, because it's one of those things that it's to help weed out people who are less desirable. No one's saying that you're cheating, but that's the standard. So if you pick it up, it goes out of play, whether it's going to a reroll or if it's a miss or if it's a failed, if it's a wound that goes through. Now your opponent might be nice and then say, "Oh, hey, that was a 6. You can put it back down," at which point you're good to go.
Yep.
But you can't be like, "Oh, that was a 6." Like if your opponent says, "You picked it up," that's the standard, right? Like just be a little bit careful about it. Now, feel free to appropriately score your opponent if they're that kind of person when it comes to sportsmanship.
Yep.
But understand going into the game what the standard is and what the expectations are. Because you don't know why that person is being like that. Like they may be only being like that because the last person they played with did it on every single dice roll and turned a bunch of 4s into 5s,
yep.
Right? And they got sick of it and they're like, I can't.
And that's what it comes down to. It's like you going into a tournament knowing exactly what to expect. I hate to say this, but you always prepare for the worst.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, people are gonna suck, which usually is not the case. I'm not gonna have a good time, which usually is not the case. I'm gonna have the worst games of my life, which is usually not the case. I'm gonna roll like crap, which that
usually is the case.
Yeah. You have to expect the worst, because when it's not, you're going to enjoy the game even more. I hate to be that pessimistic kind of guy, but if you're new to the tournament scene, that's what we're talking about, tournament prep, and you don't know what to expect the worst, because you're probably not going to get it.
Yeah. I will say you will have more fun once you stop trying to win.
Oh, yes. Hands down.
Now, that's not to say don't try to win. But I can tell you that I and all the other hyper-competitive people out there that want to win those tournaments, like we go to tournaments to win, I don't think you'll find a single one of us that disagrees with the idea that after your first loss, every game after that's more fun.
Yeah.
Or, let me rephrase. The game itself is more enjoyable.
Yes.
Now, winning is always going to be fun, and there are people who have fun winning. But I don't think there are many people, at least not in our community. I'm sure that they're out there, but we try to keep the kind of people that all they care about is winning out of our community. But I think that the majority of people, what you'll see is after the first loss, that pressure eases, and so they can have a more casual approach, which lets them have more fun because they're more relaxed. It's not as high stakes, and then they do better.
And that's true. And the best part about that too, people don't realize it. And I'm not saying go into a game and lose your first game. I'm not.
No. Some reasons don't work.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah,
throw it.
But if you got to understand how the placement works too. You lose your first game, you're going to be playing another person at that level. You lose your second game, then you're going to be playing someone at that level. Usually, I'm not saying that's always the case, because there's dice rolls sometimes happen, and 1 or 2 points dictated the win. And so game two, you might be playing someone that should be top table, because he just barely lost.
Or played another top table player.
Yeah. So the more you lose, the less competitive armies you're going to see too. Unfortunately, that's usually how it goes too. There are some times
Chris over there making faces as you and I are talking, Ski.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Bone Splitters top tables at Wargamers came last year.
Yeah.
That was a surprising thing to see. So it can happen. Some of these armies can show up top tier, and you know, yeah. But you just got to go in there. When you lose games, you get put in the placement where the same like my people are usually in the same areas. The top people that want to always win, they're usually in the top tier.
Yeah, you do tend to see that, especially in larger DTs. At a smaller local tournaments, it's a little bit wonkier because lower numbers can create situations where you have weird matchups a little bit more often. And GTs by game 3, you've got the people who brought armies with the intention of winning on the top half of the tables usually, and you don't have to worry. You generally aren't going to be running into those people on the bottom half of the tables.
Yep.
Not to say that you should play to lose. Play to have fun. That should probably be the big takeaway from the tournaments. Even just like a Friday night casual games or whenever you play, having fun should probably be your priority. And hopefully you're having fun and playing your best and winning games. But you should always have fun, which kind of brings us up to the big one that I wanted to talk about. Ow! Ow! That was my foot. All right, bye. How do you have fun when you're losing?
Yeah, Andrew.
How do I have fun when I'm losing?
Yes.
Just get really sarcastic and mean to each other, and you just see if you can do just give yourself a secondary objective that doesn't count for points necessarily, but I really just want to get rid of this hero. This hero's been the bane of my army's existence. Let me get rid of him. Then I can rest at peace. I did something right. For local secondaries and tertiaries are still something to go for. And if I can get that, then that helps a lot too. But yeah, just make, especially if you're a narrative side player and you're in a competitive game and it's not going well for you, then just think of the narrative. All right, we're on the back foot. What are we going to do about it? So, just you got to find your own fun if you're not having fun. But yeah, and I've had some bad games. You just got to maybe step away or something and just take a breather and come back in and keep rolling dice.
Yeah. I've had a lot.
How do you have fun when you're losing?
Oh man, dude, I cheer for my opponent. You've witnessed this firsthand. So this is what's so great about this is I walk into a fight because on a Wargamers Con, my first game was against Matt Taylor with his War Mammoth.
Well,
so that was walking into the pits of hell, in my opinion. My goal was to kill the War Mammoth the whole game. At the beginning, I even picked him as my secondary because I already knew that I had no chance against that army. I did my research. So I made a goal, and I had a fun time losing. I had a great time, and I ended up killing the War Mammoth for the Gort. So that's one, against you we played, and man, it could have been one way or another. But when you started just rolling like you're playing craps, trying to go for a bajillion dollars in a casino, I already knew the outcome of that game. You can already kind of see it. And I was like, all right, let's see how much damage you do. Let's see. Okay, you're going to max out your rolls. You're going to spend some more. Let's see what happens. I'm cheering you on to see what you do, the maximize that you can do against my army. At the same time, I was like, okay, what can I do against this? Well, I tried to get into the hole, but then I stopped. No, I'm not going into the hole. So I set myself up in a different atmosphere when I'm playing against somebody. I tend to try to do sportsmanship as much as I can because that's just who I am. It's going against the Plague Monk. I have to use this example. Wargamers Con against I can't remember his name. Oh my gosh. But he had the Great and Clean One, 2 Screaming Bells, and all Plague Monks. And my goal was I walked up to that and go, oh my gosh, this is horrible. What am I gonna do? He ended up rolling not quite good, and I ended up killing all 160 or 40 monks, plus getting ready to kill the Plague or the Unclean One, and I killed the Screaming Bell. I was close to the table in my Iron Jaws. I got lucky, but I walked in there, so I'm just here to have fun. Literally, I walked up, I saw what I was going to play. I'm like, okay, how can I survive this? That's all I want to do is survive. And I actually did more than that, and that was fun. But we had a good time. I try to make it the best time possible, no matter win, lose. I try not to get tabled after 2 turns either. That's another thing. Walking up to an army going, guys, they're going to table me in 2 turns. I find a way not to let it happen. I make it fun. If I have to run my war boss on foot and run around the table as he's chasing them, I will do it. I don't care.
I do that. I've done that before too. I got my slan, teleport. See ya. You're gonna catch me. I'm on the other side of the board now.
Yep. I think for me, the first thing that I'll do when I'm losing is I'll say, is it really over? Oh. Right? Like, just because you're behind doesn't mean it's absolutely over. Even if you've lost 3/4 of your army. One of the comments that one of the kind of catchphrases that I had with a friend of mine who, Gentleman James, when we practice together, we always stop at turn 2 and talk about, okay, how do we feel about the game? Do we feel like we've won it? Do we feel like we've lost it? Okay, we feel like we've lost it. Why? Okay, what can we do to win? Right? Like, take that step back, and rather than just kind of say, well, I've lost, this game's over, whatever. Right? Okay, well, what could I do to win? Like, what's the longest shot I can take? Like, it doesn't matter what the odds are. What can I do to try to win and go for it rather than just giving in? Because that tends to make the games a little bit more exciting than just, well, you killed 2/3 of my army, good game, handshake, right? No, I got this long. I'm gonna go for the Hail Mary pass here, and I'm gonna try to charge this 11-inch charge with this guy into your general, and if I get that, then I can break your bubble, which means that all of your buffs are gone, and suddenly I have a shot. Right? I'm gonna shoot for that. Why not?
Oh yeah.
Right? And then if that stuff doesn't work out, I try. And I'm not always the best at it because I am a very competitive person by nature. So this is one of the ones I struggle with is enjoying a game that I'm losing. But I try to, like you guys said, cheer for my opponent. I call it embracing the bullshit. It's my AOS philosophy. The one thing that I learned in the first year that I played here is that every army is bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once you realize that every army has their own brand of bullshit and embrace the bullshit, things get a lot more fun. And I just like seeing people pull off their bullshit. Like, oh, you're Deepkin and it's turn 3. Show me your bullshit. Because that's when you get to shine, and taking that away from somebody can be just so mean.
Well, and it's like the new stuff that I'm not saying deathly scared of, but the new BS is the whole Slanesh Lord of Change that is the bully of all bullies, that or not Lord of Change, the
Keeper of Secrets.
Like, yeah. I've seen that so many different times, a different setup. I'm like, there's nothing I can do against that. I have nothing that can, unless I kill something over here first.
Right.
And go first. If I go first and kill something over here, then I can activate and hopefully kill that. But then he's going to command point. I'm going to go first, which then cancels each other's out because I'm already going first because of an ability. So there's so much. For me, I'm just like, okay, what do I do? How do I conquer some of this BS? You know?
Yeah,
it's rough.
It can be very rough. All right. That's most of what we kind of wanted to talk about. We kind of covered player engagement alongside that. You kind of hit on this earlier that at least in Texas, we're a pretty close community, even across the different cities. We've got our own little local areas across the major cities, and then the Texas community is actually pretty tight knit. And one of the things that we kind of push in our tournaments is it's our chance to play with our brothers at arms from across the state. So if you're in Texas and you're coming to a tournament, I highly recommend that you get to know your opponents, talk a little bit about stuff that's not quite related to the game necessarily. Like, you don't have to ask them how their kids are or anything like that, but get to know them a little bit, because if you stay around in the scene, you will see them again. Oh, yeah. And it's a great place to make friends that you at least share one hobby with. Right. And it's not a small hobby. Like, this is, for most of us, this is our life. No.
This is our paycheck. Yeah.
Outside of work, this is basically all we do.
Well, to caveat that too. So say I've been to Texas since 13, and if I end up getting this job, a different state, and I move, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be gone from the scene, because, we still got Warzone, Wargamers Con, Adepticon, LVO, Nova. Yep. Like, you will see people from every community end up going to these big conventions.
And the same people tend to go to all of them. So if you decide that you want to start being in this scene, especially in the GT scene, whether that's the Texas GTs or the out-of-state GTs, like if you decide you want to start participating in this kind of stuff, you'll notice that the same people tend to go to all of them.
Yep.
And you can make some pretty good friends there. I know the Sons of Slambo have our nice little Slambassador title that we give to the friends of Slambo that we made traveling. And so we have some people in Vancouver, we have some people in England, we have some people in Australia, like that. They're people who, were met at GTs and had a good time and embraced kind of the philosophy of play that our game club has, and wanted to, get to just, chat with the crew and talk about stuff. And so that's the kind of thing that you can get if you're willing to open up to and engage with the person on the other side of the table, as opposed to just saying, okay, I cast magic missile, it is now your turn.
Yeah, right. Like, there's
right, like
engagement. You got to engage. You got to enjoy because too, Wargamers Con. I met all you guys my first time at Wargamers Con. The whole shebang of everybody, and it was amazing. Like, it blew my mind. And from that point on, I made it. I don't say made my point, but that's what I thrived on. That's what I enjoy, is the camaraderie, the people. The game is the byproduct of the people. I look at it differently than most people. You start the game and you get to know the people. I rarely get to know the people because then the game gets fun. And
it is also a lot easier to lose against a friend.
Oh my gosh, it is. It is so much easier because intentions. You have, okay, we're friends, and we're gonna have a good time, and we're going to banter, and I'm gonna get beat up because of whatever your army, and we're gonna have fun doing it. Like it is what it is. And I think I don't know. I think that's the best part, because then you go out to eat with them, you get to know them, and you're like, cool. Hey, we're going to Adepticon. Okay, who doesn't have a room? Oh, I want to go, but I can't get a room. Well, hey, there's opportunities. Not saying everybody does it all, but there's always opportunities. If you can get to somewhere, people will help you. Usually, take care of you, give you suggestions, show you the ropes. Whatever the case is. Because that builds the community. Like, that's how we should represent the Age of Sigmar community.
Well, I think making friends with people that you play with is also good. A little rivalry going on. Like, for example, George was in the last tournament at Atomic, and prior to that, in Age of Sigmar, I don't know if he had beaten me, but he whipped my butt in the first round of that tournament, and it was a great story because, like, of course, it's the one time he beats me is Toureny, and but it was great. It's fun to have good friends that are playing the same game as you, different armies, different outlooks and stuff. But yeah, it's always fun, and like you said, meeting people from different cities or states is also real cool too.
Well, yeah, George coming in and killing not just one Basiloton, but both the Basilotons. That was game changing for me, and I was running it. I was so happy. I was just cheering in his corner. Like, yes, George, you did it! Because I can't stand your lizards. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
It's fair. But all right. Well, I think we can wrap this one up. If you had to say one thing that you would recommend somebody new to a tournament make sure that they do, what would you say?
Real quick shout out, Matt Taylor is on. I appreciate you showing up, brother. And Matt Taylor puts out, Chris, you owned my best sports vote at Wargamers Con. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I look forward to going again, and I don't know if I have a ticket. I don't know if I'm playing it yet, but I do have a ticket. So sorry.
Nope, no, it's all good. All right, so if you had to recommend one thing for people to make sure that they did during their first GT, what would you recommend that they do?
What would I recommend? Meet the people. Like, oh, you're saying when they show up to a GT or before they go to the GT?
No. Like, so what's something like as like an activity or an approach or something, like what's the one, if they walk away from this video with one piece of advice about going to a GT, what would that piece of advice be for you?
My piece of advice is go to have fun and meet the people. Like, don't worry about prizes, don't worry about placement, don't worry about anything besides going to play, meet the community, have a great time. Like those three things, everything else will come after that.
Fair. Andrew?
Well, it's hard to argue with any of those points. So I'll say ditto, but also for the more technical side of it, like we mentioned before, know what your army can do, what you're hitting and wounding on generally, what spells you're going to cast, if any. Maybe make a little checklist so you know what to do in your hero phase if you have a lot to do. That way, the game speeds up, and when it comes secondhand, I found it's a lot more fun because you focus on the game instead of like, okay, what is my role? What do I have to do? And you're looking up in the book and stuff. You're more engaged with your opponent because you're like, all right, I know what I'm hitting on, know what I'm winning on. We're doing this thing. So outside of obviously the community part, which is very important, I think, if it's more technical side, I think knowing what you're doing is good.
Fair. For me, I'll kind of sort of support skis. Do something outside of the 5 games with the people that are there.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that's going out to dinner, whether that's you bring a board game and you invite people to play in the hotel room with you, whether that's you bring a second army to play a narrative game at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, or what. Do something outside of the 5 scheduled games for the tournament.
Yeah.
Sounds good too.
I think Wargamers Con, funny story was it Saturday night? I was supposed to go out and hang out with the Citadel guys, Matt and all those guys, and I had to run across. I had to go upstairs to change because I was in my armor because I wore my armor that weekend. And so when I came back down, they were already gone. And I don't know, like we got miscommunication, so I missed an opportunity to go hang out with some really good people. I got to see them the next day, and they were pretty. A couple of them were pretty under the wind, we'll just say. But yeah, try to hang out with people, man.
All right, well that kind of covers it for the tournament thing. So before we end, let's spend a little bit of time to talk about the hobby. What are you guys working on right now, and what have you got to talk about? Andrew, you're the guest here tonight. What are you working on these days?
Well, the contrast paints came out Saturday, so I picked up a big expensive handful of paints. But working on getting some of my gray lizards painted. I did a little test run on a Saurus Warrior and a Skink last night, and it looks, they got it done pretty quick, and it looks pretty good. So that's kind of my focus right now is get that all done, and then finish my actual Warzone army paint done because there's some unpainted parts still because I'm like weird and lazy. But getting everything done for Warzone painting, and then the Skinks and the Warrior done painting is going to be like summon fodder. So I still want to get that painted too, just so it looks good when if it comes on the board, even if it's not in my starting army.
Excellent. Can't wait to see them.
Well, the San Antonio crew is doing a 4 Warlords group where we're all starting fresh, and so this month is 1 hero and 2 units we have to get painted. So I recently purchased an elf lot. So my units are 1 unit of Dragon Knights, 1 unit of Reavers, and 1 High Warden.
Ooh.
And so I'm doing gold, purple, and green as my uniting color scheme between the army. So that's been a lot of fun. And I failed with my experiment with contrast paints because I tried to use them like a wash, which I don't think you should do. So some advice is when you decide to do contrast paints, be intentional about how you're using them. They're absolutely designed to apply the color of the contrast paint to the model, not just provide contrast to the model. They're not shades. They're contrast paints, and they do a very different job. If you haven't gotten a chance to use them, I would describe it as a thicker shade. It's kind of between shade and layer as far as what it does.
Yep.
It's still very liquidy, but it's thicker than shade, and it goes on fuller, I think is the term I'll use.
Okay.
And so if you put purple contrast on light purple paint, you get a dark purple model.
Yeah, you're right.
Instead of a light purple model with dark purple contrast.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I will tell you though, they become shade if you apply water, because I ended up going over it with a wet brush and thinned out the paint pretty heavily, and I managed to turn it into almost a shade. Darker than a shade, but almost a shade.
Okay, that's good to know. Especially with the water. I haven't done anything with water yet, so.
Well, I was panicking, so I was using my paint water.
Like
it was not a deliberate thing. I was like, oh my God, this is too dark. What if I just, wash it off? Okay, it's getting lighter.
Well, I got test models that I'm using before I even dive into full application mode. Which most of what I've been doing is I have been experimenting with the contrast medium, turning other paints that I have into see if they work as contrasts. So for instance, I have the full line of the Creature Caster Monument Pro Acrylic paints. And so I've been testing their paints out and seeing how much medium do I need to add, if it will work, what colors do work, what don't work. So far I did their Jade. I don't know. Let's see if I can get a good.
Yeah, what we might want to do is I think what we'll shoot for next time is we'll try to take pictures of models so we can just display pictures. Might be a little bit better than trying to get the webcams to focus on things.
So I did the Jade. The Jade came out really well. I did their pink. What is their pink again? Magenta. And I did a magenta with a flesh wash over top of it, and it turned out decent. I'm working on a couple other colors, but what I've been doing lately is just testing out the contrast paints on different levels of it. So 1 coat, 2 coats, thick, thin, trying to really understand the design behind it. So when I apply it to the armies that I'm going to work on, then I got a full grasp. I'm also trying to use blending and see how good they blend. Some colors blend really well, some not so much. And then combination of colors. So for instance, a black contrast, and you let it dry about 7/8 of it dry. Of course, you'll have like the concave areas that are still kind of wet. Then I applied the white over top of it and got a really cool like grayish meld on a cloak just to see how it turns out.
That sounds interesting.
So I've been messing around with that as well as working on terrain for Warzone. That's my other. This is a good break for right now because I'm just like, oh.
Well, I'll tell you what, the contrast paints seem like a godsend for terrain.
I think so, but I'm gonna have some reserves about that until I do it because I think
I've seen some interesting pictures. I won't say it works for everything, but if you're doing ruins, the bone contrast paint on Xandri dust apparently creates a very solid, tight, weathered marble, weathered stone look.
Okay. The one thing too, though, I'm gonna spoiler here that I've got the alkalites from Silver Tower, and over white primer, I applied the Dark Oath skin tone twice on the flesh on this guy. I don't think I might do a little bit of highlights, but I might end up, depending on how alkalites are, I have to look up the rules, but I might do a Z-Charm. There is an opportunity because I love the way the skin comes out. But Warcry, I am excited now for Warcry because of these paints.
There you go.
So, because there's a lot of flesh.
Yep.
Paints are, man, when it comes to flesh, I think the flesh is probably one of the best parts of this.
Well, then there's like 4 of them too, right? There's like 4 different types of flesh shades or flesh contrast paints, it seems. But yeah, the barbarians of Warcry should be plenty of skin to paint.
Yeah, I think this is the answer to, because a lot of people have problems painting flesh, getting it the right way, getting the right creases, the right tones, the right vibrant look of them. Um, and I put on one coat of Dark Oath, and it was nice. It had that nice little like, oh, I was kind of like hanging out on the beach kind of look. And then I put another tone, and it's like he just that darker, but I didn't lose any detail whatsoever on this model. Like the abs, the creases, the joints, and I don't know, I might try one more coat and see how dark I can get this before it loses that, and see what levels I can get to. So.
All right. Well, we are just past our hour.
Okay.
So I think that is it for today. Ski, what's the plan for next Monday's episode?
Okay, so for the people that are on, I know Kevin was saying, hey, give a little heads up that we're going to do this. Our plan is Mondays at 7. We might fluctuate through the week depending on what guests we want to get on here because of work schedules. So I want to throw that out there too. Our plan is every Monday at 7, but it could change later in the week for other individuals because there are some people we'd like to get on here. Matt Taylor, you're one of them. I'd like to get you on here to talk about some Army stuff. Of course, there's Mr. James and John Kay, and there's a handful of people I'd like to get on here. But we got the General's Handbook coming out on Saturday.
Yep.
I actually have the Warlords edition on order, so mine won't come until a little bit later. I will get a store copy. I'm able to get a copy to use for review. So we will talk Monday, I believe. We will go through the General's Handbook. We will do our best to prepare, so we're not just reading out of the book. We'll try to dive in as hard as we can and read as much as we can.
We'll have a better outline next time. This one was kind of thrown together last minute, but we're still getting used to this.
Yep. Just for the people watching too, I'm going to put it out. We are not using the handbook for Warzone.
Nope.
I'm going to bring it up every video just so if people don't catch it, don't know it. Please don't confuse your army with the new handbook when you come to Warzone. There'll be a lot of issues there. So yeah, I know there is videos out there. There are some already people have their handbooks. I know Mini Wargamer and a couple people already have done massive reviews and gone through the books. So yay for them, but we're going to do it too.
And we may not hit every single thing in the book. This is going to be the two of us and whatever guest we have, just talking about what our takeaways are, what we think are the important bits to kind of focus on.
Yep. I agree. I know I'm going to
not panic about the new terrain rules.
Yeah, and I'm going to hit the Iron Jaw stuff because that's my army. If there's people on the channel that are watching in the chat, please ask questions. We will stop and go and answer those questions for you.
Yeah, it'll definitely be more interactive than this one. This one was very much a timing based episode that we kind of wanted to do to prep for War Games Con in the beginning of the GT season. Hopefully it's of benefit to somebody.
Yeah.
And then our plan moving forward, if we don't have anything going on with AOS, like the GHB getting released, there's going to be deep dives into the different factions, and we'll probably start with the two or three that we're each familiar with, talking about what is it, how does the faction play, how can you get into it, how expensive is it, how hard is it to paint, so that way you can have a resource to direct to either research yourself or direct new players to, so that they can know a little bit more about a faction before they get into it. Because I definitely know some people who have bought into a faction and then realized it was not what they thought it was, or didn't play the way they thought it did, or was very one-dimensional.
Yep.
And so having something that kind of does some explanations would be useful.
And if the guest, like, we're going to try to get certain guests on for that specific army as well.
Yep. So if you want to talk about your army, if you love your army and want to talk about it, reach out to Ski or I, and we can see about making that work.
Yeah, and we can have more than 3. I think 4. I like to keep it at 4 as max participants on the video. So yeah, that's our plan. So if you're interested, want to get involved, please let us know. I'm on Facebook. You have the FMP. You can always message the FMP channel too, and I can see that, and I can reach out to everybody as well. You got Daniel Dawson. He's on Facebook. Slambo, Sons of Slambo, as well. And this is our Age of Sigmar once a week community chat.
Yep. So thanks for coming out, everybody, and look forward to rolling dice with you in the future.
Yeah, thanks for the Patreons that support the channel. Thanks for everybody that's viewing. Thanks for all the comments in chat. And thanks for everything everybody does in the world. Makes the world a better place. Thank you, guys.
Good night.